Welcome to Visionaries Global Media, your number one source for podcasting entertainment. Visionaries Global Media, envisioning excellence on a global scale.
This is Banned from Ringside.
Tonight on the Banned from Ringside podcast, Keith Lee beats Adam Cole, baby, in a winner-take-all on the NXT Great American Bash. We had night 2 of Fyter Fest. We talk about the Final Four in the New Japan Cup, our NXT TakeOver DoOver Dallas. It was a doozy. That and a whole bunch more tonight on the Banned from Ringside podcast. Ditch that 9 to 5. It's time to feel alive. Hello, Mark. So welcome to the Banned from Ringside podcast. As always, I'm your host, Bill Vagey, a.k.a. Gimmick Van Exel. And over there in University City, St. Louis, Missouri, we have Jason Cornelius Bell. What's going on, JCB?
Allow me to read from the latest edition of the Banned from Ringside podcast, volume 163. Chapter 3, verse 14, and the good spark saying, hashtag boo the heels. It is all good, baby. Listen, share, subscribe, repeat. Shout out to my girl, Becky Balboa. I'll see you in a couple weeks. Yeah, that was good. I like the Nick Van Exel play on words there. Good job, Vice.
That one was all for
back. You. Yeah, I know that went over 2 beers' head.
Yeah, he doesn't know.
Glad to be back. You guys didn't clown on me too bad last week, so I appreciate that. But no, it's good to be back. Ready to talk a little wrestling.
We missed you last week. Out there in Edwardsville, Illinois, we have 2 beers. Zach Pullman, what's going on, 2 beer?
Not much. I am just sweating out hard lemonade here. Just sitting on my porch. It's like 90. It feels like 100, and I hate it. Yeah,
it's so fucking steamy outside. I am coming at you from the aforementioned steamy South St. Louis. It's hot here, guys. It's hot. It's like walking outside into a soup. And
we were on video for a second, and Bill is not wearing a shirt. Just a little tidbit for you guys.
Oh no, that's true. I am not wearing a shirt. Shirts are for working, and I am off the clock. This is all. I ditched that 9 to 5, guys. Reba, don't eat the cat litter. So we have a bunch. We have a bunch of good wrestling to talk about this week. Like, seriously, a ton of good wrestling. If you include the NXT TakeOver DoOver that was Dallas, which is notable for a few reasons. It was Schinsky Nakamura's debut. It was also, I believe, the first NXT TakeOver that I watched live. And, man, it holds up pretty well. So we're going to get into all that. Before we do, Jason, why don't you tell our friends about F&B Eatery?
F&B Eatery on the corner of 3453 Southampton and Marquette, the home of the greatest smash burger that you've never heard of. Slide on in, check my boy Mike out. We're doing it all curbside all the time. So go online, check out the menu, follow them on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, all F&B Eatery. That way you can keep up with the daily specials, the store hours, all that good stuff. Keep abreast. Support the local business, F&B Eatery, 3453 Southampton. Tell them that Banned from Ringside sent you.
Let's get to that 3 counts.
1, 2, 3.
JCB, I'll let you choose. What do you want to start off with?
It's the biggest story in wrestling, even though it was spoiled a week ago. We'll jump back to last night. The Performance Center, WWE Performance Center. Winner take all, chips are in the middle. Adam Cole, baby, the NXT champion versus the limitless Keith Lee, the North American champion. Even though I did find the spoiler out immediately, I did want to see the match because obviously it was going to be history one way or the other. I thought it was still a good match, even though I knew how the finish was going to happen, at least who won the match. I still thought it was a good match. It probably would have been a little better if I would have stayed away from the spoiler, but honestly, this match wasn't that big in my heart. It didn't invest me so to where I felt like I couldn't look at the spoiler and not be upset. Either way, I'd have been okay with whomever came out as the winner in this case. Keith Lee is the winner and now is the double champion for NXT. I stand on record on this. I don't think this is a good idea, especially for guys like Damian Priest, the Cameron Grimes of the world, those guys that are seemingly going to have a harder time getting to the top of the card. That's why you have the North American title there for people like that. Not saying that it can't happen, but if I had to take a guess, I can't see Cameron Grimes being NXT champion anytime soon, if ever. Hence, that's why you have the second singles title, neither here nor there.
So to be clear, your reservations with it aren't about Keith Lee. It's about Keith Lee holding both belts.
Right. If it was me at this point, I would just have Keith Lee relinquish the North American title. So that way you can kind of have a tournament, you build up some guys, you crown a North American champion, and you go that route. I just think that one guy, and I don't care if it was, like I said, if it was Adam Cole, I would still have these same reservations. I don't think that one guy on NXT should have both titles because there is a group of guys that are somewhere in the middle, the mid-card, so to speak, that could use that North American title to give them that little push, that little momentum that they could need for their career. But like I said, neither here nor there. For me, the biggest takeaway for the week is Keith Lee being the double champion, North American and NXT champion.
No doubt. What do you think of the match, Zach?
I really liked the match. I also spoiled it for myself. That 1 week build was not enough to get me invested in not knowing immediately who won or lost. Like, usually I avoid spoilers, but I just really wanted to know in this case. And like Jason said, I still really enjoyed the match, even though it lacked the suspense as far as who was going to win. Both those guys worked really hard, and NXT is definitely going all in, and so is USA Network with the lack of commercial breaks. So this was like a TakeOver length, TakeOver quality match on a Wednesday night, and it was really cool. Lots of fun spots. Adam Cole with one finger on the rope. Keith Lee with a massive comeback. Lots of near falls. Lots of, just charisma from both dudes, even though there's just like planted fans in the crowd. Just a really entertaining match. I imagine like it also kind of elevated the entire rest of the show because the rest of the show was kind of mediocre. Some of it not even that great. But it leaves you, if that's the last thing you see, and it makes NXT seem even sweeter, like in hindsight, even though the first 2 hour and a half was not necessarily like awesome.
Yeah, I mean, this is why I have two different Twitter accounts. I have one that's all wrestling and one that's no wrestling at all, and it's because I hate spoilers. I hate hearing. I like being surprised. Isn't that's one of the funnest things about wrestling? When's the last time we were really surprised? I guess it was Edge at Royal Rumble, and that didn't get spoiled for anybody. And in the room where I was, everybody popped huge when Edge came out at 27. So, it wasn't spoiled for me at all. I didn't even know there were spoilers out there, to be honest, until today when I started looking around. It's like everybody was saying how it was spoiled for them. Zach has talked before about how sometimes it's hard to build a match around a babyface guy that's so much bigger than the heel. I thought, and that was a problem with the Keith Lee Johnny Gargano match, which I think was at the last TakeOver, I believe. I didn't think this match. I think this match kind of figured that problem out a little bit better than the other one. I love Keith Lee. I think Keith Lee is the right guy to carry the NXT brand going forward, especially if Karrion Kross is going to be his next opponent, because then we got a guy that's just about his size. Keith Lee is charisma personified, though. Everybody loves him. He's the type of guy that when he's wrestling, and my wife, who only tolerates wrestling. When she walks in, she's like, "Who the fuck is that guy?" Because he doesn't look like a lot of other wrestlers. He's huge, and the dude can move. So if there, I pretty much agree with Jason. Like, I don't think that there's a real point to putting both the belts on Keith Lee. I will say, though, as somebody who tries to watch both programs at the same time, I was definitely more invested in the Keith Lee Adam Cole match than the Orange Cassidy Jericho match, which was the main event on AEW, which we'll get to here in a little bit. I definitely watched the Keith Lee Adam Cole match live because of the stakes. And maybe I would have done the same thing if it was just for the heavyweight title. I probably would have, but having it be a winner take all for both belts definitely put a little bit of mustard on it. You know what I mean, Jason?
Yeah, but I mean, let's just say all things being equal, I didn't spoil it for myself. I would have still watched the winner take all match first, because I mean, there's just more on the line, and I'll talk about that later in the NXT DoOver part. But I mean, when you, like I said, before, just come into this, it was chips in the middle. Everything was pushed in. So I mean, somebody in theory was going to walk away with everything, and somebody was going to walk away with nothing. In this case, obviously, it was Keith Lee.
And Adam Cole's held the belt for a long time. It was probably the right time to take it off him too, and the right guy.
It was a year plus. Keith Lee is, I think, one of the better NXT guys that you have on the roster that can take that rub and, run with it. My only thing is, I don't think that Karrion Kross is going to be the next in line, because God forbid if you do that right away and you take the title off of Keith Lee, you've kind of wasted the Adam Cole rub. If Keith Lee beats Kross, now you've kind of, made him take a step back. So, I mean, maybe it's going to happen, because obviously we've cracked the hourglass. You saw the foreshadowing of Kross looking, and Scar looking down on Keith Lee's celebration moment or whatever. So it's going to happen. I just don't think it's going to be the next match. Somewhere down the line before the year's out, they'll have their feud. And then from that point, if they take the title off Keith Lee, so be it. But I don't think you take it off of him right now, because you want to use the fact that he took the title off of the longest reigning NXT champion of all time and run with it for a little bit.
Yeah, I'm not saying that I'm a better wrestling fan because I avoid spoilers and I figured out a way to do it. I'm just saying I'm a purer wrestling fan than you guys are. Zach, what do you think about Kross versus Lee coming up next?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely seems like that's the direction. Like Jason said, I don't know if it's next. I could easily see them kind of hot-shotting the belt off of Lee onto Kross and putting Lee on the main roster. We've talked about that a little bit. And in which case, like, it doesn't necessarily, like, you don't lack the luster. And then I feel like Kross versus Lee is a much more intriguing match than Kross versus Cole.
I do too.
Because of the size of the guys.
Yes.
So I could see them, like, him being a transitional champion, but only in the sense, like, kind of, we usually put that in like a pejorative connotation, but really like him being a transitional champion because he's transitioning to a couple extra zeros on his paycheck, right?
Right.
So that could be cool.
Yes, I completely agree. I don't want to step on the NXT TakeOver DoOver segment too much. I mean, it worries me, Keith Lee going to the main roster. It worries me. And
shit, it worries me about Undisputed Era across the board.
Well, yeah, it should worry you about everybody, especially when you looking back 4 years ago, when you look at the fanfare in which Nakamura entered the WWE universe in April of 2016 or whatever the pay-per-view we're going to talk about. Like, I mean, he was so hot, and that was a hot crowd, but we'll talk about that later. I think
well, yeah, I mean, and Nakamura being, and yeah, I don't want to step on it too much either, but Nakamura being one of the biggest and best big match wrestlers on the planet, right? Like, I put him up there as far as like big match wrestlers with Kenny Omega, Okada, like guys that can they can main event a Tokyo Dome and carry it to an amazing match, right? Like top 5 in the world. Yeah. And those guys, what's the last match that Nakamura has done that was super memorable, right? It just
memorable for all the wrong reasons was the match against AJ Styles at WrestleMania when it became a low blow feud, which is seriously one of the oddest decisions, one of the oddest creative decisions that Vince has ever rubber stamped, or maybe he had the idea. But for those guys to keep trading low blows in match after match after match is just super fucking weird. I'm real happy for Keith Lee. He's no spring chicken, but he's young-ish. I think he's around 35.
And Vince is high on him, so we know that. Vince loved him at, was it the Rumble or Survivor Series? Which one was it? I don't remember.
I guess it's probably the Rumble. Well, he did cross-pass with Roman Reigns at Survivor Series, and then in the Rumble, him and Brock cross-pass too. So, if you want to take that line of thought and kind of run with it, he's put Keith Lee, he being Vince, put Keith Lee in spots against 2 guys that Vince thinks very highly of. So, in that scenario, that could be, fingers crossed, good for Keith Lee. But, it's just so many times where we've seen the hot, NXT guy come up to the main roster and nothing happens. I'll just keep it simple. Bianca Belair has been called up, been AWOL pretty much since. Shayna Baszler has been called up. She lost to Becky Lynch and has been AWOL since. And you can go down the line. I'm sure we'll talk about it later. So, there should be some trepidation about anybody coming up, Keith Lee or otherwise.
Those don't bother me as much as ones in the past, though, because of COVID-19. Just because there may be other things that just haven't been leaked to the dirt sheets that maybe Bianca Belair's not there every week. I don't know. Because obviously they like Bianca Belair because she was the only big news that came out of the night after WrestleMania, which is, Jesus Christ. I don't even want to think about how disappointing that was. What you guys think about the rest of the card? We had
Swerve Gargano was really fun.
Swerve Gargano was very good. I also enjoyed Santa, or what are they, Legado? I can't speak Espanol. Whatever.
Legado del Fantasma.
Yes, Legado del Fantasma. That's one time I was in Mexico and we couldn't get any cash because of our cards, and so all we could do was go to places that took credit cards, and I learned one phrase, and it was, "Do you accept credit cards?" And it was "Excepto tarjito de credito," and I would go around to all these restaurants and say it because a lot of places didn't take them. And one time I go to this host that was standing at this pretty nice restaurant in Tulum, Mexico. I go, "Excepto del tarjeta del credito," and he goes, "Yeah, we accept credit cards." He was looking at me, you fucking dumb gringo. But
yeah, hurry up, motherfucker. I'm gonna let you embarrass yourself.
Them versus Breezango and Drake Maverick was fun. I thought they told a good story with them picking on Fandango's injured left knee. I'm a sucker for injury storytelling within a match because it actually adds a lot to the match. So I enjoyed that. Mercedes Martinez is going to get a little look in NXT, which is cool. She's 39, but she's been on the scene for a long time. Any other thoughts?
I thought
go ahead,
I was upset. I was upset about the street fight a little bit. Mia Yim has just looked dumb the past couple weeks, and it just bums me out because I think she's a talent, and she's looking dumb because of booking and not looking dumb because she's not talented or not charismatic, because she's both of those things. But last week she got eliminated because she was in a 4-way and she bumped Tegan Knox, who's her buddy in the 4-way, but then it caused her to lose the match even though they're actually competitors, even though they're working together. That was just dumb. And then in this match, she was the babyface and she brought a weapon that was taken away from her. and used against her to lose the match.
WWE loves a dumb babyface.
They do, and it's just it's disappointing because that's the kind of stuff, we said WWE, and that's the kind of stuff that NXT used to shy away from. And I don't necessarily, people say that Vince is not involved in NXT, but I feel like the main roster booking is like maybe Triple H's mind. Like, he's been so much better at booking than those other guys. Maybe that's like, I don't know. It's just leaking in, and it's just a bummer.
Well, Hunter never had to book against competition, and maybe Vince isn't involved, but it certainly feels like Hunter is leaning on Vince's old tricks, because Hunter came out this week and said, yeah, we are counter-programming AEW. Like, it's healthy competition. This is what elevates the entertainment. It does seem like Hunter is leaning on some of Vince's old tricks. What do you think, Jason?
I agree with Tuvier totally, just in the sense that you could tell, like I guess it was 2 weeks ago, last week, there was a run-in a match, the opening match, where multiple women came in and interfered in the match. The week before, the same thing happened. So, I mean, I've been complaining about that too. So I don't blame Tuvier at all. That's main roster type booking, where you bring in random people, or not even random people that don't even have anything to do with the match, and all of a sudden get them involved. NXT doesn't even have to go that route. There's enough talent on the roster where you should be able to put one person across from the other, give them a storyline, and let them go. They're smarter, at least storyline wise, up to this point.
I know what you meant.
They've been smarter. Yeah, they've been smarter than main roster up to this point. Now it just feels like they're doing things just to kind of do things. You know what I'm saying? And it's just a case of Mercedes Martinez. I liked her in the Mae Young Classic, but she has kids. She's obviously a little older, so it kind of took time to get to this spot. So kudos to her. It looks like they're going to give her a nice little push. Tegan Knox is the only other thing I wanted to talk about. I haven't been big on Tegan Knox, but that vignette that she did for the title match next week has made me excited about the title match next week. I at least want to see how she performs there. I don't expect her to win, but I expect her to look good and give a good performance.
Hey, you know who else has
kids? That was really good.
Heath Slater.
Heath Slater.
We'll get to him later. Go ahead, Zach.
Oh, no, I was just saying, like, I've been a big proponent of Tegan, like, since Mae Young Classic, and even being, like, a fan, like, throughout, like, with her and Dakota Kai, and, that babyface tag team. And even though they kind of ruined that feud, and they made her look stupid in that feud, they've done a really good job with that video package. Like you said, like, I just want to echo that, because if you don't know Tegan Knox, if you're just like a casual watcher, like, she's something to watch out for. Like, I feel like she is like a future big player in WWE women's wrestling, right? And she's a big talent.
All right, that'll be the last word. Let's get to that. 2 counts.
1, 2, 3.
2 beer. What's the 2 count?
2 count is AEW. I was texting with Tinder Mahal last night about this, and you can probably guess that we considered it a superior show, being AEW marks. Self-proclaimed, but understandably so. This was like top to bottom, a really entertaining wrestling show, and like 2 of the matches were like great, and one of them was like one of the better matches of the like entire pandemic, in my opinion. So just running down the card, Hangman Page and Kenny Omega defeat Private Party. I don't think anybody thought Private Party was going to win, but I also don't know if anybody thought Private Party was going to look as good as they did in a loss. And I feel like this was like Private Party's best showing on AEW. Like, I thought they looked smoother. There was very little issues. Like, everything was very smooth. and I feel like Kenny Omega's kind of hands were all over this match, and I think they did a really good job putting these guys over in a loss. What did you guys think about it?
No, I agree totally. Maybe I might be a little biased just in the sense that I liked the match against the Bucks because it basically put them on the map. But this one, you could tell their chemistry has gotten better over the course of time. You don't see the little hiccups in between moves between themselves, between each other in Private Party and between their opponents or whatever the case may be. So, yeah, I agree with you. I mean, this was a really good opening match. Nobody thought the Private Party was going to win, but it once again gives them a chance to be shown against the champs. So hopefully they can get more fans getting them over, the chance win to extend their reign of terror on the tag team division. And it's just going to get even harder for them because there's going to be teams coming up on the horizon that are going to challenge them. That's going to bring really good matchups coming up.
I mean, I'm torn because I like watching. By the way, Private Party was great. I'm a big Private Party fan. Yes, they look great. Omega and Page made them look like stars. They made themselves look like stars. More importantly, I'm going to kind of zag where you guys were zigging, where I'm ready for this Kenny Omega Adam Page split. As much as I like Kenny Omega especially in a tag team situation, we've been on this for a year, and Kenny Omega's been in this tag team for probably half a year, where Kenny Omega is not at the top of this card, and Kenny Omega is not allowed to rip off a 20 or 25 minute 5-star since he's gotten to AEW. I mean, he's had good matches for sure. That one against Dean Ambrose, the hardcore match or the weapons match or whatever that was fun and everything, but I want to see Kenny Omega in an athletic match against somebody who matches his athleticism. Of course, you guys know who I'm thinking of when I'm talking about Kenny Omega in the greatest matches that he's ever had. I want to see that. So
you want to see more Iron Mans versus Pac on regular TV, right? Like, because
definitely
they definitely have the ability to do that.
They definitely do.
That is something. Because, I mean, like, if you think about counter-programming, right, it is so obvious that NXT is counter-programming and AEW is just doing what they want to do. Because if they were counter-programming, they would have been like, all right, well, we're taking goddamn Kenny Omega because he's the best bout machine.
Yes.
Everybody knows it. And we're throwing him in the main event against, XYZ.
Yes.
Or, whatever it is.
And guess what? Guess what? Hey, next Wednesday it's going to be Kenny Omega versus this guy in a 30-minute Iron Man match or in an hour-long Iron Man match. And if you told me that Kenny Omega was going to be facing Cody Rhodes or Phoenix in a 1-hour Iron Man match to be the number one contender or something, I'm not turning to NXT.
I don't know, man. I was going to say that even still, all things being equal, that'd be a hard call right there, man. I love Kenny Omega. I think Phoenix is amazing in the singles and tag team. I mean, he's just amazing across the board. I don't know if I could watch that, even if it was an Iron Man match for the number one contender over a double championship bout. I mean, but that's how much they had to put into getting people to watch. Now, where do you go from there? Because now you've kind of like popped your biggest cherry, so to speak. Well, where do you go from there?
What if they said we're going to give you an hour-long match against Phoenix, Iron Man match? Let's just say one of them holds the belt. I'm just talking hypothetically, and then it's against. And then the final 20 minutes of NXT is going to be winner takes all in a heavyweight and North American championship match. I'm watching Kenny Omega.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a valid criticism because it's something that they don't do, and it's something that people would like to see, but it's something that they've decided that they're going to do their own like long-term booking. And I kind of almost appreciate the fact that they don't care about the week. They care about their long-term storytelling.
Totally.
And I
would never disagree with that. But
yeah,
man,
no, I'm not saying that you do, but yeah,
selfishly as a fan,
we want to see it.
Yeah, I want to see it.
But I'm actually there's still this AEW tag team division is so good, and there's still so many matches that I want to see those two have.
Yeah,
before they split it up.
Well, there's another couple tag team matches that we can talk about. Let's keep it going, Zach. What's next?
Okay, so Lance Archer defeats Joey Janela. Joey sold for him great, and Lance, looked like the monster that he is. If some people might argue that Joey's like on like a down streak right now, but I think that guy like Joey could cool off, and especially with a crowd, he'd be real easy to heat right back up. So I'm not worried about Joey Janela at all. I don't know if anybody else is, but that's my take on that.
No, I love Joey Janela. I just think his fearlessness is like kind of scary. It's like eventually going to get him hurt. That's the only thing I'm worried about.
I don't worry about Janela. I worry about how they've been AEW books talent. They kind of built up SCU recently, and they've taken a step back. Joey Janela's Sunny Kiss, same thing, really good vignettes, and now they've kind of taken a step back. So I'm not saying that this is a pattern, but it's something that I think is at least something to look out for, because it's not. I don't think it's going to happen all the time, because it's not smart to always undercut the talent as you're building them up. But at least recently, it has been something noteworthy that I just kind of looked at and just kind of tripped off of. Like I said, it's probably nothing, and I'm just looking for something to talk about. But
yeah, you really need the encouragement to find something to talk about.
That's my ass.
I like the match. I like Lance Archer a lot. I've been real high on the Lance Archer train since last year's G1, so I'm cool with it.
Then we had, this is the match that I was talking about, in case you were wondering when I said there were two great matches.
I knew what it was.
Yeah, one of them was arguably the greatest match of the pandemic era. Butcher and Blade and the Lucha Brothers defeat FTR and the Young Bucks. And this was not like a total spot fest like you might think, even though it definitely had some crazy spots, including like a Canadian destroyer, a middle rope con tope, so middle rope over the rope. So like a middle rope con tope Canadian destroyer onto like every other like person in the entire like mix.
I screamed.
I know, it was so crazy. Like, I saw it on Twitter because I was watching NXT first, and I saw it on Twitter before I actually saw it. And even whenever I saw it in the match, I still screamed. Like, it's so ridiculous. But my favorite part about it was the storytelling, right? Because like, this is all about FTR and the Young Bucks. Like this whole like pageantry, right? This whole eight-man 4-team thing is really at its core about FTR and the Young Bucks. And you knew that there's going to be some fuckery, and you knew that somehow the FTR and the Young Bucks were going to have some kind of like disagreement, right?
Right.
But what I did not expect was in the match that those guys would have such amazing chemistry and actually be working together. And like Nick helped Dash hit the Shatter Machine, which is called the Goodnight Express now. And then Matt helped Dax hit the Spike Pile Driver, like the Arn and Tully like Spike Pile Driver. And they're like doing each other's like finishing moves, and they're like mixing and matching.
They were having fun, man.
Yeah, they were having so much fun.
Yeah.
And then whenever there was like an accidental super kick that, ended up costing them the match, they still shook hands at the end. And there was like some obvious tension. They lost the match, but it was not overt and it was not explicit, and they didn't pound it over our heads, and the announcers didn't say it 10 times to us. Like, they just let us recognize that is what cost them the match. Those guys still shook hands, and they went off into the night, and now we're just continuing this slow build. And I think it was perfect. Like, I couldn't have expected more from that match.
What you think about it, Jason?
Yeah, I was going to say that this is probably one of my favorite matches of the night because it's hard to kind of work multi-man matches. I think New Japan does a really good job of their 6- and 8-man multi-man matches. But this, like Two Beers said, it's really about the Bucks and FTR. It's no disrespect to the Lucha Brothers, who I think, like I said, I'll gush over Phoenix anytime I see him. Pentagon, I think, is one of the more charismatic characters in all of professional wrestling. So, I mean, just to have them there. Butcher and Blade were good to have along board just for the fact that now they kind of get the rub from, winning this match. I mean, they're not a serious contender in the division itself, but it was nice to see them just kind of get the win. Honestly, this was probably my favorite match of the night just because the storytelling itself, I agree with Two Beer. I knew somewhere along the line that FTR and the Bucks were going to have a beat. Now, whether it cost them the match or not, I didn't know that, which I'm glad it did. But they kept it cool where it was like, okay, we lost. Everybody's still shaking hands. But somewhere down the line, this is going to come back up. So, yeah, it's done well. And this is why I want AEW to just keep doing what they're doing. If NXT wants to counter program, that's on them. Just do what you do, and the results will come at the end of the day.
I'll tell you what, there's a lot of things that NXT can do that AEW does just as well. There's a lot of things that they're pretty equal in. We expected counter programming, or we expected something completely different than WWE. That's not what AEW has done. It's doing what it's taking the WWE model basically and trying to do it better. What NXT basically doesn't have is shit like this match, because this match was bonkers. Like, I appreciate Zach saying that it wasn't a spot fest because of the storytelling, but they did a lot of storytelling within a spot fest because, I know some people don't care for the Lucha Brother or for the Young Bucks style of matches, which tend to be spot fests, but that has its place on a card just like anything else has a place on its card. Everything doesn't have to be the same all the time. You could have great storytelling in a Cody versus Jake Hager match, and then you could have a spot fest on what's essentially the same pay-per-view with these guys. This match was bonkers, and I'm glad that Zach brought up that Canadian Destroyer spot, because I was sitting next to my wife and my dog on the couch. Both of them weren't paying attention. Both of them were reading yoga books. And when that happened, like, I legit screamed, and both of them jumped. And I was like, I'm sorry, ladies. Like, that was fucking insane. And then they went back and showed it, and Erin kind of watched it. And she goes, oh, what the fuck are those guys doing? I was like, I know. What the fuck are they doing? They're trying to kill each other. I thought that he was going to complete when he went off the top rope, I thought he was going to complete the Canadian Destroyer on the ground, which could kill somebody. What's wrong with these guys? I think
Sierra Merda.
I think that Phoenix is pretty much. Pentagon might have more charisma. I think Phoenix is one of the most insane, athletic, high-flying wrestlers that we've ever had. I mean, he's like.
I think you could make an argument that he's the best high flyer in history.
I think you could too. I think he kind of makes Ricochet look kind of tame. And I'm not talking about Ricochet in WWE, because I've watched a bunch of Ricochet New Japan matches. Or what's the other? Never mind.
Ricochet doesn't scare me though, right? Like, Phoenix frightens me to death.
Yes,
and that's where I feel like the high flying. And I'm not even saying it's right or that he should do that or that he should put that much effort and like put his body on the line for me just to like mark out about it. But man, I get legit scared with those. And Nick Jackson too, incredibly underrated, because you often think of the Young Bucks as like a whole. Nick Jackson is so good. They did that spot where they were holding hands and they were both standing on the top rope, and he did a springboard off the top rope to a Hurricane Rana.
Damn.
Like, oh my God. I mean, like, just remember, like, Phoenix, we talk about singles matches that, you know, AEW could throw together on a minute's notice. Like, him and Phoenix had a 5-star match on a goddamn Wednesday night, and it was Nick Jackson's like first singles match in like 11 years.
Right.
Like, they have a
man,
like they're not wasting their talent in the way that WWE is wasting their talent. They're just like not just giving us like bukakis every week.
Right. And Phoenix did that where he ran across the ropes, and he almost ran across the top rope to the other side. I mean, he looked like one of the Flying Winlinda brothers or some shit. Like it was a legit bonkers match, and I had a great time with it. Zach, what was next? You guys talk. I'm gonna go take a piss.
So we had I don't know about the order of this. I know we had Nyla Rose in a squash match, and she said she's gonna have a manager. That's a lot of managers. It's fine if Nyla gets a manager.
I said it was somebody that we don't see right now. Is my guess.
I think so too. And you know
now, who that person is, I couldn't even tell you.
I got to guess, and
shoot.
It is. I think it's Vicky Guerrero.
Okay, I wouldn't have a problem with that. It would be. I hate to say this, AEW-esque to kind of take a shot across the WWE bow. Vicky could get heat. So, I mean, you know, that can happen. I can see that. I wouldn't necessarily have a problem with that. I really didn't think Vicky Guerrero. I was thinking somebody that was more of a legit manager that they would bring in. But I guess to a certain degree, Vicky is a quote-unquote legit manager. So, okay, fair enough.
I didn't think of that on my own. Meltzer mentioned it offhand whenever he was recapping the show, and he's like, "Yeah, maybe they bring in Vicky Guerrero." Like, and he just said it like offhand, but I was like, she's so close with Jericho, and we've seen her on these shows before. I was like, plus, I think she'd be great at it. So,
oh yeah. I was going to say the work with Edge. I think that speaks for itself.
Yeah, but yeah, so that was fine. You know, they're obviously building towards either Nyla and Penelope Ford and Sheeta, or like just Nyla and Sheeta. Like, we'll just see like where it goes. But they kept panning back and forth between the two of them kind of equally. So kind of makes me think that they're going for a Bill Veggie special on that one.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily mind a Bill Veggie special on that either, especially, like I said, I think Penelope Ford is going to be the future of this division a year or 2 years down the line. Personally, it wouldn't bother me if we did Nyla versus Sheeta Part 2 and just run that back. I thought their street fight at Double or Nothing was really, really good. Even if you had to just make it, you know, a regular, you know, rules match or whatever and put the title on the line again, I wouldn't be necessarily against that. But yeah, I agree with you. I got the sneaky suspicion we're getting ready to see a triple threat.
Bill Veggie special means different things in different parts of the country, guys.
The credit for it.
I'm just saying it means different things in different parts of the country.
And if you're saying that I've never Googled Penelope Ford three-way before, you're fucking crazy.
I will say this, though, just keeping on the theme of the women's division. A lot of people knock the women's division, and I just think that once they start to get their steady roster of women that are going to be there week in and week out, kind of like they're doing now, it's going to get a lot better. And I'm not saying it's bad to begin with. I think it's just one of those things where they had plans in place for women that they wanted to come in, Kaylee Ray being the biggest one. And when those plans fell through, you know, you're going to have a shuffle. You're going to have moving parts. Bea Priestley was kind of in their plans. Obviously, she's in Stardom and she's going to stay, or whatever the case may be. Big Swole and Britt Baker, I think, is going to be the feud coming out of this. When we do the Beefers at the end of the year, I'm not saying it's going to be the feud of the year, but one of us is going to say that, you know, we enjoyed this feud particularly. It'll get some sort of honorable mention. But overall, I like what the direction that the women's division is going.
Okay.
We also had a Taz promo where he unveiled the Fuck the World Championship, which I do not remember. So
I don't either.
I was getting ready to say
remember.
I was not a big ECW fan, so this is strike 3 for banned from Ringside altogether.
I watched a bunch of ECW, but it was like very entertaining because it was back before you could watch stuff on demand, and you like had to watch it when it was like airing like live, so it was just like really hard. But yeah, like I just don't know about introducing another belt. Like it's interesting because Impact's doing it right now.
You stole my thunder.
With the TNA belt, and now we have the Bobby Lashley U.S. Championship belt, which we didn't even mention, but totally has like a Nazi eagle on it. And that's just my take.
Oh, I didn't even think of that. Ugh.
It's a really good looking belt, but a really good looking belt with like a Nazi eagle on it.
I mean, Bobby Lashley has long been known to be sympathetic to the Third Reich.
Yeah.
Listen, for anybody,
he's one of my favorite wrestlers.
For anybody who's going to tweet me and say that's not true,
by the way, fellas,
huh?
It's MVP who introduced the belt. Okay, Bobby Lashley is just along for the ride.
Yeah, MVP, whose real name is something very, very Muslim. I can't remember what it is. He loves the Third Reich, just like all those Muslims do. So, I mean, makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, y'all
so that happened. So we'll just see how that plays out. Like, I'm not going to like jump to like on the criticism train like too much because I don't know like how it's going to play out. It was an awesome promo, so that's all I care about. It was really good.
Yeah, Taz is on fire.
Yeah, and we had Dark Order with special guest goddamn Colt Cabana's Hematoma, which was hideous, just absolutely hideous. They defeated SCU. That was a fine match. Those guys all work really well. They're all really good wrestlers. Kind of just continues the Colt Cabana Dark Order storyline.
Gotta be honest, I gotta be honest. I really don't get the Colt Cabana. Like, he just kind of seems aloof or something. Like, he doesn't seem. I know they're trying to invite him in the Dark Order and they let him get the pen and everything, but then he kind of acts like a kid, like Batman Kid or something. Like, he's just happy to be there, and it's like, wait a minute, I thought Dark Order was. It just seems really strange that Colt Cabana is the one they chose to go with the Dark Order, which, by the way, I'll reiterate, is a bullshit gimmick, and doesn't make any sense, and it has nothing to do with Brody Lee.
Yeah,
go ahead, too.
I was just gonna say, I don't have anything to say. I'm just like, it's a thing, and it fills up some TV time, and it's not offensive to me. Like, it doesn't like make me want to turn the channel. I'm not like super intrigued, but it's like, it's not dumb, right? So like, that's like the bare minimum that WWE's got me working with, because usually it's just dumb.
If the Dark Order was on WWE, you would fucking hate it, Zach.
I wouldn't hate it as much as like, at least they're not trying to pull somebody's eye out, you know.
Oh, we'll get to that.
Ooh, I'll go this far. I kind of see where they're going with Colt Cabana on this one, because to a certain degree, yeah, he is just happy to be there. I mean, like a month ago, he was losing match after match after match. Now, he's getting a taste of winning. So, yeah, it might be a little weird to him. He might not know how to react. Where you got, in your heart of hearts, he's like, yeah, I want to celebrate. But then you got Brody Lee and Stu Grayson like, come on, man, this is what we do type nonsense. So it's going to be one of those things where, yeah, he looks confused. And he played that part pretty much to the T. He looked confused.
But
I don't have a problem with it.
But what I'm saying is they spent a lot of TV time on Dark Order. And Dark Order is now Brody Lee and Colt Cabana, which is not like they're just using Dark Order. Why don't you just scrap the whole Dark Order thing, stop having guys wear gimp masks, and just make it a Brody Lee Colt Cabana thing?
Right now, it's about those two, and that's fine. It's about the converting of Colt Cabana. But I mean, that's not going to be where this story ends.
You
got to remember, we're still in the middle of a pandemic where there are going to be movie storylines that are going to happen. So, I mean, it's just,
my God.
Right now, this is what it is.
Oh, my God. You know, it's been a long time since me and you have fought on the air. I'm going to say this. They've spent so much fucking time and energy trying to get the Dark Order over, and then they had to bring in Brody Lee and Colt Cabana, and now they're still trying to get it over as the Dark Order. Just scrap the Dark Order thing. Just scrap it. It fucking sucks.
This is coming from the guy that was saying that Shorty G was one of the greater gimmicks of the last couple years.
Now that is disingenuous. That's disingenuous. I never said that Shorty G was a great gimmick at all. I just defended it and said, you know what? If AEW can have a guy named fucking Jungle Boy, and everybody's fine with it because he's a great worker, then WWE can have a guy named Shorty G, and everybody should be fine with it because he's a great worker.
You know why we're not fine with it? Because you're not making him a great worker. You're making him a fucking little bitch. The dude is an Olympic goddamn athlete.
I'm taking the W here. You're taking the L.
Like a fucking scrub week after
Take the L.
He's eating up.
Take the L.
I won't take the L.
Just take the L.
I refuse to take the L. You're defending Shorty G. Okay, I refuse to take the L.
I wasn't even talking about Shorty G. You started talking about Shorty G.
And the fact that we're getting ready to talk about Chad Gable having another great match here in like 20 minutes.
Yeah, it was a burner.
We established the fact that they fuck up every time and they don't use their proper talent right.
Hey,
God damn.
I just got to say, Jungle Boy picked his name. Shorty G's a slave name.
Oh my God! Jesus Christ!
Cold-blooded.
All right, Zach. Zach can always bring us back together. Zach, what was the main event?
I really just wanted to talk about Jericho and Orange Cassidy, so that's why.
I just thought it'd been a while since Jason and I had argued on the air. It was, you know, we gotta give the people what they want.
No shit. Hug it out, bitches. Hug it out.
Oh, man, it was good, though. So, yeah, this match was awesome. It was super great. It was exactly what I expected it to be with actual surprises, though. Like, it was so fun. Like, Jericho, made this guy look like $1 million. Jericho basically has 3 finishing maneuvers, and Cassidy was able to get out of 2 of them, but he could not get out of the one that nobody is kicked out of. And the bat.
I mean, Jericho hit him with a bat. I was legit surprised because I thought that was the end of the match when he hit him with the bat. When
me too. I thought that's where it ended, and I feel like we were conditioned to think that way, and I popped huge. The only thing that could have made this match better was a crowd, because the crowd would have lost their minds. I mean, we talk about screaming. I screamed again. The 2 times that I screamed last night watching wrestling were that spot, the Canadian Destroyer spot, and then Orange Cassidy does his hands in pockets. He does this his murderous kicks, right, where he goes and kicks the shins, and everybody reacts he's murdering the guy, and he usually just steps back and he does a very light super kick to the shins. Yeah, but this time he straight up full on super kicked him right in the face, and I just popped so hard. It was just so good.
It was huge, man. It was awesome.
This is how you get someone over in a loss, and it was just textbook, and it was so entertaining. And I mean, if you're not into Orange Cassidy, I'm not telling that you have to be, but I'm pretty sure if you go to ProWrestlingTees.com and you try to buy a BFR shirt, you're actually going to look at the top 10 shirts, and the first 4 are Orange Cassidy. So you're kind of on the wrong side of history.
I think the second 2 are BFR.
Yeah, 5 and 6. Yeah.
Jason, what do you think about the match?
2 Beer hit it on the head, man. I was going to say this was basically the way to get Orange Cassidy over, have him look like a standard wrestler at times, so that way other people, and even Jericho said he had to be converted over to liking Orange Cassidy because he didn't like him at first. I think this was a good way to get that done. Blood Girl Raven made a really good point. If there was a crowd there, for this match. I think this took this match to a whole nother level. I mean, it was good, boring on great at certain points. If there was a crowd there, a normal, usual 10,000 strong AEW crowd, they'd have lost their shit on a couple occasions on this match particularly. That's how good I thought this match was. Jericho is the modern day GOAT right now as far as I'm concerned. Everybody that he's touched inside an AEW ring has gotten over and has moved on upward in some form or fashion. Even Scorpio Sky,
except for Fandango,
is doing even Fandango. I mean, whatever he touches in AEW right now is just turning into gold. So I mean, that's just kudos to Jericho. And in this case, he's done it again with Orange Cassidy. And I agree with T-Bear. You don't have to like Orange Cassidy. I mean, wrestling is subjective. I'm not going to tell you who you like, but if you don't like him after this performance, I don't know what to tell you at that point.
I don't think
if there was a crowd, I would argue that you put him over Jericho. Like we said last week, we did our predictions, right? And I picked Jericho. But if there was a crowd, I'd have put him over, man. I don't think it would have hurt Jericho at all because
definitely wouldn't have hurt him.
Yeah,
I don't think it's an exaggeration to say, and you know, I try to be wary of recency bias. I don't think it'd be an exaggeration to say that Jericho is A, doing the best work of his career, and B, having the most fun he's ever had in his career. I think that both of those two are arguable. I mean, there are other people that would have other opinions on that, but man, he is way over as a heel, and he is doing pretty much the opposite. If you make the 1-to-1 comparison of AEW and WCW in 98 or 97 or 96 coming up to be the competition to WWE, and you compare Jericho to Hogan, I mean, Hogan never made anybody look this good. I mean, this is 25 years later, this is the evolution of wrestling, and Jericho is making that company hum. He really is.
Well, he's definitely the straw that stirs the drink. There's no question about it. And,
I mean, do you disagree? Has he ever been doing better work?
I agree 100%.
I mean, he's doing a lot. He's doing a whole lot more with a whole lot less in terms of in-ring ability. Of course, he knows how to tell a story. Of course, the guy can still have a great match, but he's not the Jericho of old who, you know, was the first undisputed heavyweight title of WWE back in 2001 or whatever, right?
Yeah, that sounds right. I'll just say this: that there's only one time that I can think of off the top of my head that Jericho was arguably better is when he went into business suit mode. And
yeah, I was just thinking the same thing, Jason. Yes, when he was business suit mode in like 2009, 2010, right?
Yeah, give or take. And he was the best at, you know, what he does. You know, that was a strong Jericho. I liked his CM Punk feud against Jericho or whatever. That led to Edge or whatever the case may be at WrestleMania.
Best friends were really good too. Him and KO were really good to go.
Yeah, that was getting ready to say that was the other one.
God damn, there's so many. There's so much good Jericho.
I think that's why, like, you know, you say recency bias, and it's only because he's still wrestling. I feel like that's why you got to put him on your Rushmore, because he's just so many iterations of himself. You know, he doesn't have an iconic character that. He has so many iconic characters that he's created.
And he's absolutely never sucked.
No, there wasn't any of them that were, like, a bummer.
Right. He's never been, like, a shitty heel or a shitty face. You know, there's that argument that when he came
out with the... Go ahead.
Well, when he came back in 2007 and he tried doing what he did when he came back, when he entered WWE in 1999. I've watched the Jericho double DVD several times. Even he's like, I thought that I could do the same thing in 2007 that I did in 99, but I couldn't. And I knew that I had to change it up. Even that was pretty cool.
Because
when he came back and had the jacket or whatever and came out week after week after week.
It didn't say anything.
That shit got over. And he didn't say a fucking word.
Yeah,
That's how great Chris Jericho is.
I mean, the more you think about it, the more it's really hard to argue that he might be the greatest of all time. In terms of longevity in this era, like nobody's done more TV than him. Nobody's been on TV.
I will always lean towards Ric Flair. I have no problem if anybody is saying that Chris Jericho is better.
But Jericho did. Here's the thing, though. Jericho did so much more TV than Ric Flair. You know what I mean? Because every single thing
that you saw, Flair did a bunch of TV.
Yeah, I was getting ready to say, don't discount that.
I think Flair probably did more TV than Jericho, honestly.
WCW Saturday Night was basically revolving
one
around
night a
Ric
week.
Flair for years.
One night a week, though.
No, because he was on Crockett Promotions. Like Ric Flair toured the country, and he was in multiple territories.
Did more people see him, or was he on Channel 46 in some territories?
Well, back then, more people watched wrestling, so like it was just different. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see. I'd like to see somebody do the math, but I mean, like that's kind of a weird argument to have anyway. They're both great.
Yes, they're both great, but I'm saying, okay, yeah, we can leave it at that.
You got a superstation. I mean,
more
superstations are across the country, so
yeah, more
I get
people
what you're
watch wrestling
saying, but
back then.
That's why I agree with Zach on this one. More people watch wrestling back then. I don't think you get nearly the hardcore base won't leave. I think you get more casual fans back then.
Yeah, but they had more of the share of the people that viewed it, but not more eyes that viewed it. And also,
it'd be like 10 to 15 million people that watch wrestling like on a Wednesday night or like whatever, or Saturday night or like whatever it was. Like people just watched more wrestling. Like that was just the reality.
Man, I just had a really fucking good point. You made me forget it. Anyway, here I'm going to put one of us over because we had the Fyter Fest predictions. Hey, I can't remember who won. Jurassic Express beat MJF and Wardlaw, right?
Yes.
All right. So, Fyter Fest predictions. Bill Vagey had 7. Jason Cornelius Bell had 7. Zach Pullman had 8. Motherfucker.
I am the smartest man alive.
I know. I actually think Zach is killing Jason this year in terms of predictions. I tried to make funny predictions because, you know, like like as Jason said, I'm the straw that stirs the drink, you know. But, I mean, it's really just a competition between those two. If I was really doing the predictions that I wanted to, I mean, I'd be way ahead of you guys.
That's just Bill falling on the whoopee cushion.
Yeah, thanks for falling on the sword there, Chief.
I do want to say this because the Orange Cassidy versus Jericho match was great. I loved it so much. Orange Cassidy's character is strange in a main event setting just because it really is like a comedy character pretty much, but he turned it up in this match. It was the biggest match of his career, obviously, and it was a ton of fun. I love the match. I really thought that Cassidy was going to win with about 5 minutes left. I was like, oh, he's actually going to beat Jericho. Wasn't meant to be, but it was a great match. And so we got to keep it moving. We really got to keep it moving. See, I'm always like, oh, we have so much time. And then I look at the clock. I'm like, we don't have that much time. Let's get to that 3 counts.
1, 2, 3.
Yeah, I'm on my 3rd goddamn Truly Lemonade here.
All right. The 3 count is the New Japan Cup Final 4, which was Hiromu versus Okada and Evil versus Sanada. I will say that I watched this on a hungover Sunday. My wife was doing whatever she does, and I was like, ooh, I forgot this was on. I'm going to watch both of them. Didn't know what happened in either one of them. I got to say that I think I liked the Evil Sanada match more. Evil went over. It was basically a heel turn for Evil. Am I wrong in saying that? I'll defer to you guys because you guys are the New Japan experts more than me. That was a heel turn for Evil pretty much, right?
No, that was insightful for sure. Yeah, because, I mean, it just kind of proved that Evil will do anything to win, even against his own stablemate. So I feel like that was definitely leaned heelish. And usually Los Ingobernables de Japón is like heel, but fun heel, right? They're not usually cheat, they're not usually like malicious heel. They're not like Bullet Club heel. But this was a different kind of evil.
Agreed.
So to speak.
Much more vicious, cutthroat, low blows. I don't give a fuck who you used to be. You're in the way now. Kind of evil.
Yeah, even when they shook hands at the beginning, like they both went right for their finishers right at the beginning. I loved the match. It was so much fun to watch.
I like the Okada Hiromu match a little better just because of the size differential and how they told the story there. I didn't think that Hiromu was going to win it.
Yeah, I never thought that Hiromu was going to win.
He definitely teased a upset of them in the making there a couple of times, and that's really all I could ask for at that point. Okada's Okada, and you're not going. Whoever would have beat him would have been the talk of the tournament, and at that point, whoever that person was would have had to go to the finals. I don't have a problem with this final. It's a different final, at least in the sense of who Okada is facing now.
Is there any chance that Evil goes over?
Yeah, Evil beat Okada in the G1. There's a chance.
Yeah, I know. I'm saying now to whoever wins is going to get a chance at Naito.
Honestly, I never know how to say it. I'd rather see Evil Naito versus Okada Naito at this point. We just kind of got past Okada Naito, which was absolutely amazing. I don't know. Well, I'm sure you could recreate the wheel and do it again.
Well, fight forever.
I got this.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen it. We've seen it a few times, and it's always great. But with Evil, there's more intrigue, right? Because of the stable.
We always kind of thought that Sonata might have been the one to break away. Maybe Evil's the one to break away first. So, yeah, Okada's obviously the favorite. I've said that going in. I would really love to see Evil pull the upset here. I ain't gonna lie.
Thoughts, Zach?
Yeah, I mean, I'm on the same train because, I mean, Okada's like my boy. Like, I always say he's like the greatest living wrestler like of my generation, right? Like, it's just like, I've always got my favorites that I like mark out over. But when I look at it like analytically and objectively, like Okada's had the best title reign of like my living memory and of my life, and he's put on the best matches of my life. And
also, he's just cool, man.
He is cool as shit, and he looks so good in a suit. And my God, I just want to cuddle up next to him. But
yeah, me too.
I think he could
totally get it.
A loss, and I think that losing Okada, like I thought it was fun whenever Okada lost the title and he started coming out with his balloon, and it was just like going crazy. And
it's what the fuck's wrong with Okada?
Yeah, exactly. I feel like him dominating an entire tournament and then like losing in the final could add some long-term storytelling and that self-doubt, and then we have like kind of like the greatest living wrestler in history like have like some kind of like resurrection story, because we don't need an Okada title reign right now. We just don't. We've had that, and it's Naito's time, and Naito's storyline is so great.
And they're both LIJ, right?
Yeah.
Well, Naito and Evil, but
no, that's what I meant. No, I know. I meant Naito and Evil. Like if Okada doesn't win the championship, or win the New Japan Cup, I should say.
So like either way, we win, and that's the best part about this. Is
that's the best part about New Japan.
Yeah.
It just fucking rules, man. Even, Jason said something earlier about the Keith Lee Adam Cole match, about how it didn't really, I forget what you said. You were saying something about how it didn't really feel like an NXT TakeOver match, and it's like, well, it wasn't an NXT TakeOver match. And then we talked about if there were fans there at the Orange Cassidy Y2J match. If there were fans there at Keith Lee, Adam Cole, they'd be going crazy too. It's just a weird time, and it's a weird way to gauge. It's impossible to gauge who's over and who's not when there's no fans. It's just I mean, I say it every week. It just fucking sucks.
No, but they're the immediate litmus test. They're going to give their opinion right away. Now, whether you and I and Zach agree with the crowd's opinion, that's another story altogether.
We
But
often don't.
Well, that's another story for another time. But immediately they'll give their reaction to it. Okay, so I mean, yeah, we're kind of missing that a little bit. But and just kind of sticking back to point, this is why I don't mind New Japan not having fans, because they really weren't a part of it until it was really necessary for them to be a part.
You're totally right. It is different because they're a different. It's a different culture. They have a different way of reacting to wrestling. Real quick, one word answer: who you got, Evil or Okada? It's happening July 11th. Zach.
Sorry, I had to stop midstream. I was urinating there.
Just piss on the podcast. There's nobody listening.
I'm gonna kind of go against my better judgment, and I'm going Evil.
Who you got, Jason?
Okada.
I'm taking Okada. Thanks for keeping it to one word, Jason. That's going to be it for our 3 count.
1, 2, 3.
That was very hard, by the way.
This is banned from Ringside.
Okay, let's get into our NXT TakeOver DoOver, guys, because this was a frickin' doozy. I'm not going to spoil the end, but I do want to talk about the first. This is the NXT TakeOver Dallas, happened in April of 2016, right before WrestleMania. It was a five match card. I would say that we keep talking about when did TakeOver become TakeOver. I think this is when it became TakeOver. So I'll go. Well, I know that there might be better ones later.
I agree. No, I agree with you totally.
I think, and I'll spoil the ending, I think this is the best one that we've watched since we started. The first match. Do you agree?
I would agree with that.
Zach?
I would agree with that.
And also, this was a epiphanic kind of moment for me, because I remember like last week I was like, oh yeah, I was like, I saw this one. I was like, but I don't remember when. And then when I like Googled it, this was in Dallas the same time as WrestleMania. And this WrestleMania weekend, it was on my birthday weekend, and it was free, for like new subscribers. And I got like a Facebook ad, and I fucking signed up for WrestleMania and saw the Undertaker and Shane McMahon match. I also saw the Triple H Roman Reigns match, but I'd forgotten about that. But I saw every match. But like the ladder match, I remember. But like I really remember the Shane Undertaker match. That's what got me to sign up. But when I signed up, I enjoyed it, and I was like, why have I not been watching wrestling? Like, what is wrong with me? This is like who I am. And then I read about this NXT thing, and I went and watched this TakeOver. So like this was the first day. I didn't watch it live, but I like watched it like that week, and like this is the moment that I became like an NXT fan, and I'm really excited. It's been 4 years, and I'd forgotten.
I'm not sure I watched it live, but I definitely came home from the bar and then rewatched it. But let's get into it. So the first match we had was American Alpha versus Revival, and this match was a fucking killer, guys. Like, it was so good. The crowd was chanting, "Who is Dash? Who is Dawson? Who is Dash? Who is Dawson?" Which
they
might
even look alike.
I know, but I can never tell them apart either. That's the thing. I thought that chant was so funny. I have a problem with tag teams, I guess, because, go back to the Young Bucks. I gave this match 4.25 stars. It was 20 minutes. It was 18 minutes or whatever, nonstop, bell to bell. Just two tag teams having fun. The heels were great heels. The baby faces were white meat baby faces. I loved it when the guy with the chops, I think it's Dash, when he started fucking around with Chad Gable at the beginning, he goes, "Oh, he's the amateur, huh? He's the amateur?" So good. I gave it 4.25 stars. What'd you give it, Zach?
That's exactly what I gave it. It probably would have got to 4.5, but they did have that one botch, which was funny, and the crowd called it out, but then they got right back on track like immediately. But yeah, 4.25 for sure. Like, this was awesome. Not only to see Chad Gable and Jason Jordan going at it. Chad Gable, R.I.P. because we already talked about that earlier. Jason Jordan, career ended too early. and FTR is still doing it, but
I'm not
super fun.
I'm not sure either one of these teams had a better match in WWE than this one. What do you think, Jason?
Revival DIY.
All right, Jason.
Yeah.
Oh well, I can't.
That was the one that
I can't wait to get back to that.
Jumping off of. I gave it 4 stars. I wanted to give it more, but yeah, the botch is the one thing that kind of. And I love the Dallas crowd. I mean, they were pretty hot from the start, obviously. But this is the one time I wish they would have kind of just left the botch alone. Look, we all saw it. You ain't got to throw these jokers underneath the bus. But like 2 years in, they got right back on the track and had a good, solid match afterwards.
This crowd definitely tried to get itself over the entire time. It was a hot crowd.
Yeah, and it kind of sucked. It's in spots. This was one of those times where it kind of sucked to be hearing this, but then
it definitely sucked later on.
Nakamura and Sami Zayn had their match. They kind of made that match more. It was already good. They made that match great. Nonetheless, back to the point, I gave it 4 stars.
I want to remind all the listeners that is why the BFR mantra is boo the heels, because you should never go in business for yourself when you're at the show. You're supposed to boo the heels to make the show better. Next up, we had Baron Corbin versus A-Double, Austin Aries. I'll let you go first, Jason.
I had totally forgot about A-Double coming into NXT until I saw the preview for the card. I like Austin Aries as the wrestler. I think his views as a person have a little left to be desired, neither here nor there. I gave this 2.5 stars. It was a weak build-up. The match was okay. Small package to pin a big man is not necessarily a great way to go about getting one guy that is coming in with a lot of fanfare. And NXT were getting a lot of good names at the time. Obviously, Nakamura, you bring in Austin Aries. Bobby Roode made his first NXT appearance, so he was on the way in. So, I mean, they got a little roster going.
Zach, what you got? Oh, I'm sorry, Jason.
No, I mean, ultimately, I just think they should have put Austin Aries over a little stronger. They kind of didn't. The crowd wasn't into it. Like I said, 2.5 stars.
What you got, Zach?
Yeah, I gave it 2 stars. I didn't care about this match at all. I watched it, and I wanted to skip it every minute that it was on. But I'm a real journalist.
Yes, thank you for doing your due diligence. Zach and I are in simpatico so far. I also had 2 stars. This is fine. I mean, they can tell a story. They obviously had to have a match to bring it down a little bit in between American Alpha and Revival and Zayn and Nakamura. But it's 2 stars. I want the record to show, though, when we go back and listen to all these again when we're old men, Jason has by far been the most sympathetic to Baron Corbin matches. He is, he is really giving them some scores. Next up, we have Sami Zayn.
Oh, my God.
Sami's,
Get the fuck out of here.
You really, we talked about it last week. You really are giving some scores to Baron Corbin matches. I think you're a Baron Corbin mark. Next up, we had Sami Zayn versus Shinsuke Nakamura in Shinsuke Nakamura's WWE debut. I'll go first here. This match is incredible. Sami Zayn was the right person to go against Shinsuke Nakamura. Nakamura is the right guy to go over. Everything about this match, from the entrances to Sami Zayn's facial expressions, during the match and before the match, everything was perfect. I gave it 4.5 stars. The highest I have not given 4.5 stars to any match on the TakeOver DoOver yet. Zach, what do you have?
I gave it 4.75. I actually considered a 5. It's right there, right? And this was just 2 guys that in 2016 were 2 of the best in the world at what they were doing. And yeah, you hit the nail on the head. The fact that this was Nakamura's WWE debut, and we have to think about as talented as he is, like coming from Japan, like, and I know like he had done some ROH stuff, but like just that transition, right, is, could be pretty difficult. But these guys did fantastically, and I don't know if it was Sami Zayn's last show, but they gave him like a nice little send off at the end that kind of added a little more impact to the entire package of the match. But yeah, entrances. I forgot how much I loved Nakamura's old entrance, just to see that again, and for the first time, it was just it was a quintessential pro wrestling match without any stakes. And I think maybe had there been some stakes involved, it might have elevated it to that like 5-star rating. But this is like the best kind of exhibition match that you could possibly get. Like if I was a pro wrestling teacher, right, like this would be in my curriculum.
Right. Jason, what do you got?
I gave it 4.5. I agree with Two Beer. If this was a title match, I think it could have bumped it up to maybe 4.25 or 4 3/4 stars. It couldn't have gotten much better than what this was. It was a story being told of basically Sami on the way out the door, because I'm pretty sure, I think they said he was in that ladder match for the Intercontinental title, and that's when he went over to the main roster. But Sami Zayn was basically painted as the heart and soul of NXT before Johnny Gargano was. So you're basically having the heart and soul open the door up for hopefully who would have been the next big star in NXT, and Shinsuke Nakamura. Easily could have been one of the biggest signs, arguably, to that point. Kevin Owens was big, but, when you bring in Nakamura, who's an international superstar, it could arguably be a bigger signing. And like Bill said, Sami Zayn was the perfect guy to get this match over. It was really fucking good. Spoiler alert, it's the highest ranked match I have on this card. 4.5 stars. It was really fucking good.
It's the highest ranked match that we have on the DoOver so far. So, and we also had pretty high rankings for American Alpha and Revival. Next up, we had Bayley versus Asuka. Zach, why don't you go first?
This was awesome, and this was at a time when Bayley was literally the face of the women's division in NXT, not just because she was the champion, but because of her charisma and like her unique charisma and kind of her unique ability to capture that younger audience. And I feel like that is sorely missing in modern NXT. Like we don't have a Bayley that can capture those young girls and young boys, quite so much. We don't have a character like that, and I feel like that's hurting NXT right now. And then we have Asuka, and this is the beginning of her reign of terror, right? This is like she's years undefeated. Like she literally never was defeated. Spoiler alert for all of these takeovers that we're about to do. Never took a loss in NXT. And I know she's champion now, and it's been hit or miss with her on the main roster, but she was truly great, and they booked her really well. And this was the beginning of it, and I gave it 4 stars because these women worked really hard, and I really enjoyed their work, and I think the right person won. And yeah, this is the beginning of history, right? So that's cool.
I'm kind of two minds here on Bayley because I did not like Bayley 2 years ago, 3 years ago. I was like, I don't get it. But in NXT, she was great. And now I'm starting to think she might be actually coming into her own as a heel, like as a really annoying heel. And I like what her and Sasha are doing, even though I don't watch all that much of it just because SmackDown sucks. But they're on every single show. Asuka, obviously, is incredible. I gave it 3.75 stars. I like the story that they told. I like that Bayley didn't tap out. She just passed out. I'm a big sucker for that type of ending, so I gave it 3.75 stars.
From a baby face.
Yeah,
that was really good.
Zach, I didn't get your star rating. Sorry.
I said 4, so we're not El Simpatico anymore.
Not El Simpatico. What you have, Jason?
But Bill and I are. I gave it the same rating, 3.75. Like Two Beers said, this is the start of a reign of terror for Asuka. Little did we know, but for me, Bayley is kind of the bigger story because of how this ends. It doesn't end with her tapping out. It ends with her passing out. But
it's ultimately protecting her. Yes.
Yeah. Up to this point, she had Asuka in the guillotine chokehold. We hadn't seen Asuka in any kind of real trouble. So we were telling that story, can Asuka, fend off, the plucky champion? And to itself, it was that own story. It's like, it's like Drago getting cut in Rocky IV for the first time. He's got a machine. He's a man. So, you had that kind of going on in that whole scenario. So now you're thinking, yeah, maybe Bayley does have a chance. Maybe Bayley can pull it out. Asuka obviously does pull it out. And like you said, I think this is the best way to go about it, where Asuka wins, but Bayley passes out in the loss. So ultimately, like you said, Bill protects her in the loss. I wanted to give it 4 stars. It didn't really feel like a 4-star match. So, like I said, 3.75.
Totally agree. For the main event, we had the Demon, Finn Balor, versus Samoa Joe. Like Zach said last week, it kind of sucks watching all these over because you might forget who wins one match or another match, but you know that the Demon never loses. So the Demon goes over Samoa Joe. This is a match that was marred by real-life implications because Samoa Joe got cut the fuck open, and due to new WWE guidelines, instead of letting him bleed, letting him get color, as they would say, the referees and the medics had to stop the fight to put it on. I docked it for that, even though I know it wasn't their fault. And you know what? I give a lot of credit to the crowd, because during this match, they could have been taken out of it due to the medical interference, for lack of a better term. But the crowd was into it the whole time. It had potential to be 4.5, 4.75 stars. I gave it 3.75, and like I said, not to the fault of any of the performers, Joe or Finn, but just because of the injury stuff that happened in the middle, it kind of cut out the flow of it. And you could tell that Joe was pissed about it too. Zach, what do you think?
Oh yeah, absolutely the same. It was kind of a bummer. Again, that's a bummer when you rewatch and the Demons never lost, and then it kind of spoils the ending. Even though I had already seen this, I had forgotten like when Joe got the championship, because I just remember Joe having like a very stable, like being a very stable champion for a while, and I think he was a 2-time champion actually, if I remember correctly, because this is when I started watching NXT, and it was a bummer. Having that spoiled, and then also like the match itself, I'm like hyped for it because it's still Samoa Joe versus Finn Balor, right? Like these guys are amazing, and then this happens, and it's not their fault. And good on NXT and WWE for like looking out for the talent first, at least in that regard. Even if they can't give them a fucking COVID test for 4 months, at least they can make sure they're not going to bleed out. Like that's fine. So but I still, the match was not as good as it once was or would have been. So yeah, I gave it 3.5. I got taken out of it pretty hard.
Jason.
Yeah, you gonna really be mad at me. I gave it 3.25 stars. Like you guys said, the headbutt was an unintentional headbutt. But if we're gonna be honest about the match, the stoppage of the match multiple times takes away from the match itself. Okay, the match itself was good, but then every time where it's okay, we're getting ready to get into the flow of the match again, we got to stop and wipe Joe up, try to put some glue on it, Vaseline on it. Nothing's working, and it's not going to work. This is just, unless you physically cover it up, stitch it up, whatever it is. I'm sure it took stitches. it wasn't going to stop bleeding. So you ultimately have the problem of how we're going to pull this match off with the flow of blood and keep it a good continuous flow where, you know, nothing is going to be interrupted. And it was just impossible to do. It just took me personally out of the match. It interrupted so to where it didn't even feel like a main event anymore. It felt like, you know, these two guys were wrestling for minutes at a time and just couldn't get anything going. Not their fault. It was an accidental headbutt, but if we're going to be honest, it wasn't the best match of the bunch, and that headbutt took away from a lot of it. So, like I said, 3 1/4.
So, okay. So now I think this is our 10th NXT into it, or maybe less. Something like that, though. Our NXT TakeOver, I should say, since we've been doing the DoOver series. I'm going to say this is the best one that we've seen. Is everybody in agreement?
Oh, yeah.
Because
the
the point of this is that we were trying to determine what the best NXT TakeOver has been.
Nakamura, his debuts, blows the roof off. The tag team match, the curtain jerker tag team match was really fucking good. Asuka wins the title against Bayley, and that was a good match. The main event was marred just because of an accidental headbutt. But, I mean, top to bottom, I would agree. NXT Dallas so far has the lead.
Zach, you agree?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
All right.
I think this is the best one so far.
This is banned from
They
Ringside.
only gonna get better, baby.
Let's get to those odds and ends. Heath Slater, another fired person from WWE who has come back to do Raw, just like Drake Maverick just got fired, but then just kept being on NXT. He's back. Heath Slater comes out in the opening segment of Raw with Drew McIntyre and Dolph Ziggler. Heath Slater ends up cutting. Why wouldn't they give him that much promo time while he was in the company? It's just unbelievable, because once he got done with that promo, I was like, well, now I'm ready to watch McIntyre versus Slater for the belt. But no, we're watching McIntyre versus Ziggler, and I'm a Ziggler guy. But Ziggler's, I mean, that promo was great. What do you think, Jason?
No, I agree. And I said it on Twitter that night. I'm never going to say that Heath Slater deserves to be the world heavyweight champion, but I mean, he could have been a solid mid-card, you know, component of the roster. You know, The Rock has gone back to him to get in shape for WrestleManias. Taker has used him.
Yeah, so is Taker, I was going to say.
WrestleManias. So, I mean, obviously he has talent, but WWE is sports entertainment. So you never really get to see the promo side until now. He's basically out of the door. As far as I was concerned, that was an audition tape. To anybody out there that was even concerned with, can Heath Slater talk? Yeah, Heath Slater can talk and he can wrestle. So he just probably made him a little bit of money just doing that spot alone. That's probably the reason why he did it, and I don't have a problem with him doing it.
I heard he's going to Impact. What do you think, Zach?
Yeah, exactly like you said, that made a Slater McIntyre program the most attractive program as far as like titles go in WWE, which is saying something that they cut this guy for shareholder expenses, and it just proves that they never gave the dude a chance. Like really before, they just gave him on his "I got kids" gimmick and put him on main event and had him lose a whole bunch. And yeah, it was like the fact that he could just come from essential obscurity and then elevate himself to main event, like really speaks to how poorly WWE handles talent. And I am glad for him that he got the exposure, and glad for him that he didn't have the ego to like say, screw you, you fired me. And like he used it, he used the platform to show off his great new body and his promo talent.
I mean, I think that's the 3MB way, right? You get fired from the company, you come back looking fucking fantastic, and then you get a world title.
It really is.
Hey, look, good on Heath Slater, man. I was going to say that was the one thing I did not say about Heath Slater. He looks like he's in shape and he's ready to go wherever he ends up on. If it's Impact, that's even better.
You know, I heard people saying that on Twitter and shit. He was always in shape. Heath Slater never did anything wrong. All he did was work hard, job out.
Okay.
And when he had to be funny, he was funny. He won the belts with Rhino for a while, which might be one of the strangest tag teams to ever exist. I've always been a Heath Slater guy. In fact, when 3MB was around, I can't remember the podcast around when 3MB was around. I don't think so. But Heath Slater was always my number one guy out of that group. And, I mean, that group was just a real jobber group. I fucking love him.
Okay, better choice of words. I'll steal Booker T's line. Heath Slater looks jack, baby.
I'll steal Booker T's line.
Looking real jack, baby.
We're coming for you. No, I can't say that line. Asuka and Bayley had a 24-minute match at the end of Raw, and I didn't watch it.
4 years later.
Right, I know. Isn't that fucking unbelievable? A 24-minute match. And as Tinder would say, Raw is MVP because MVP was, I think he was in every segment. I think that Asuka Bayley match was actually a triple threat with Asuka Bayley and MVP. You guys cool with MVP being on that much?
I mean, good for him. Like, I don't really care that much because I don't watch it that much. So
he's elevated. He has elevated Lashley. Lashley is like pretty cool now, actually.
No, but this is what Lashley should have been to begin with. I can't give MVP credit for elevating Lashley. He talks for Lashley. No, he talks for Lashley. Lashley has always kind of been that, intimidating force to begin with. Next thing you know, you got him saddled up with his sisters. He doesn't look so intimidating anymore. You saddle him up with Lana, he looks like, the home wrecker. So, I mean, I don't think it's necessarily MVP that elevated Lashley. I think the booking around him, making him look, a little more of a serious threat has helped him out. Now, if you want to talk about if Cedric Alexander, for example, flips heel and then starts to look good, maybe you could talk about that then, because Cedric Alexander isn't necessarily, he is who he is. Now, if all of a sudden we get interest out of that, I'll give you credit for that. But Bobby Lashley is Bobby Lashley. They should have been making him badass from day one.
It does seem like MVP and Bobby Lashley are going to be adding somebody to their team, right? And we make a lot of jokes on this podcast about how Vince just groups all the black guys together and, just make them face each other. Let's fight them each other like fucking Django Unchained and shit like that. But it does look like they're going to add somebody to MVP and Lashley. Would you rather be Ricochet or Cedric Alexander? Zach, I'll ask you first. White explain this to Jason, please.
Yeah. I was just going to say, I feel like I'm the least qualified.
You ain't shit. I swear to God.
I'm going to use this time to complain about my local statues.
All right. I've been looking at the SmackDown Raw stuff. There's really nothing else. I mean, that's the end of the odds and ends.
This is Banned from Ringside.
Hey, everybody.
I'm not going to argue.
We got some birthdays. Like, I don't want to talk about Riddle versus Morrison. I don't want to, I don't want to talk about it.
I heard that match was good. I haven't seen SmackDown.
I'm sure it's fine. We've already been talking about wrestling. Like, basically, this podcast has turned into the Wednesday Night Wars, New Japan, old NXT takeovers, and personally, I think that's cool because we can do whatever we want to with this podcast because nobody's paying us. We're our own boss, and our fans love us. Isn't that right, fans? We got some birthdays this week. Kevin Nash is
crowd noise pumped in.
Kevin Nash is 61. Mark Marrow is 60. Shelton Benjamin is 45.
He's younger than me.
Yes. Hold on, I gotta check that. That doesn't seem right. But he can't be 55, can he?
I'm done.
I don't think he can be 55. I think he's 45.
If he's 45, then he's born in 1974.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, he's 45.
God damn.
No, he's
No,
born
in 1975.
1975.
Yeah.
Gilbert is 61. R.I.P. I can't imagine he's still alive. If he is, hey, Gilbert, hit us up. We'll interview you. Tyson Kidd is 40. Jeff Cobb is 38. Jesse Hurricane Helms is 46. Sami Zayn is 36. Brock Lesnar is 43. X-Pac is 48. Double J Jeff Jarrett.
Jeff Cobb's 38?
38, yeah.
That dude needs a contract.
Yeah, no shit. Where did I leave off on? X-Pac is 48. Double J Jeff Jarrett is 53. Bubba Ray Dudley is 49. Charlie Caruso. I was waiting for that, Jason. She's 33. Heath Slater, the aforementioned Heath Slater, is 37. Jesse Ventura is 69. Nice. And the Boogeyman is 56. Hey, everybody. Oh, wait. Finn Balor's 56. Wait a minute. Are they the same person? Hey, everybody. We know there's tons of podcasts to listen to, so we appreciate you listening to our podcast. For Bo Geisman.
Jack.
For F&B Eatery.
Jack.
For my dogs and my cats. For my wife and I, who are taking...
Is that like metaphorical, or like you were talking about like your literal dogs and cats?
I'm talking about my literal dog and cats.
Literal dogs and cats.
For
You
Two
got
Beer
a
Zach
literal dog
Pullman.
and cats.
For
Jack.
Jason Cornelius Bell. Everybody,
Konnichiwa,
support your local weed dealers. Support your local restaurants and boo the heels.